And thank you for those of you who appear to be at the session for how do you actually use an ILO here at GCC. This is going to be casual, so I don't have anything kind of like formally presented. So I'd rather just respond to whatever your specific questions are and show you what to do or how to walk through things or whatever else. So let me know what you like. Tell me what you know and what you don't know, or what you think you maybe need to know, and we will go from there. Or are you just hanging out to hang out? I just want to hang out. I mean, I can just like, I can talk, you know me, I can talk nonstop.
So I'll jump in and ask questions.
Okay.
We talked about this at the last DAC meeting, but I was wondering if you could go into more depth about pulling the data and conducting our own analysis. Talk about kind of how to get the data, how you would want us to report back to you, what format you would want it in, that type of thing.
Excellent. That's a great question. Let me get this set up. I can totally walk through that. Let me share my screen. Oh, hold on. I'm going to do one more thing before I share my screen so that I can do this. Okay. Now let me come in and here. All right, so we are now on just the Gaucho page. We're just going to start there as a landing page. And if you're interested in institutional learning outcome assessment, there is under our learning outcomes tab an ILO piece. This is the more public facing page. So this is not necessarily where you would want to go for these kinds of questions that are coming up. So under our employee resources, it says ILO reporting, and that's going to take you to our institutional learning outcome resource page. And I'm just going to walk you through what's on the page to orient to, and then I'll kind of go through Gina's question. So it talks about what an ILO is, where you can find the rubrics. All of our rubrics are linked right here. We have 7 institutional learning outcomes. There are more than 7 rubrics because, for example, our communication ILO has 3 rubrics associated with it: oral communication, written communication, visual communication. But there are 7 in general. These were decided upon about 5-6 years ago through quite an extensive process. All right, and then there's a spreadsheet version of it if you just want to see everything. So there's the rubrics have anywhere from 5 to, I think the longest one, information literacy, has 9 items on it. Okay. This is where we can get to the ILO data dashboard. This is, as long as you have access, log in with your MEID, you can do that. If we want to take a look at it, we can look at the dashboard there and see what can happen there. And then the whole next set is how do you do ILO assessment through Canvas. So here's all of these videos that are very, very short individual videos about, what is it? How do I do it? If I'm adding it this way, I'm adding it that way, and so on. Because essentially the idea with these institutional learning outcomes is that I want to do, I have assignments in my class already that I think speak to these outcomes. I want to see how students are doing on them. And so I simply attach one of the rubric items to my assignment. As I'm scoring my assignment in the traditional fashion, I also click the rubric item and that data gets sent to Canvas, and then we send it to IE, and then they put it into the dashboard. And so there you can see that information. But this is also goes to Gina's point. She's like, what if our department wants to use this data and we want to get the data back? All right, so let me just come down here. So we've got all of that. And then there's some other helpful hints if you wanted to score separately, that this is not pretty much all that used. And then at one point, what we did is we did an activity where we kind of thought through for all of our courses and all of our departments, which ILOs are we serving? Because it was kind of thinking through the idea of, all right, there are, what's the goal of Psych 101? It's not going to hit all the ILOs. Maybe it's going to hit 1 or 2 of them, but like which ones do certain of these, do certain classes really support? So that's this page. And actually, I should probably maybe add this to this page. But what Gina's asking about is, okay, let's say I sent this data And now I want my data back, or I want my department's data, some larger group, because I want to analyze it and I want to use the ILO as something that I can use in my department. So underneath here, so the very last item, and I know that when you kind of scroll in Gaucho, the last items get a little bit tricky, but it's down here at the bottom, it says Canvas data request. If I click on that link, oops, what it's going to do is it's going to give you a form that you put a request in to get the data. And that form comes to me. If anyone has sent me one of these forms, I realized I was not getting alerted. So I've got a little bit of a backlog to do. There was a glitch, and for some reason, I didn't know if stuff was coming in until somebody emailed me and said I sent in a form and I didn't get it. But what you do with this form, it's pretty basic. It just, you know, asks who you are. We'll kind of do, let's make it a little bit bigger. So just, you know, name and all that, you know, who you are, what your role is, what department you're in, when you need the information by. And then this is a question. So, you know, do you need help with data analysis? So are you going to analyze it yourself? There is a separate process if you need to ask IE for some support, or you're not sure yet. And you can actually find the link to ask institutional effectiveness for data help there. So I'm just going to say I'm going to analyze it myself. It then is going to ask you, you know, what year is it, you know, what term, so we know what data to pull. You could actually ask for multiple sets of data. You could identify what outcomes you need, because like there are some district outcomes that some groups need that we can pull from them. Most likely, you're going to be looking for like college or ILO outcomes. You'll identify what courses you need, what specific information. And then there is one question around, do you need student information? Generally speaking, we recommend against this, unless you are really trying to compare students at this time to students at that time. There are lots and lots of complications around having identifiable data. So you need a really, really good reason to request identifiable data. So there's a separate page that says like justify why you really need this. Most people say that doesn't matter. Okay. And then you're just going to say, well, how are you going to use the data? Like, we want to make sure that you have a thought about what you're going to do. So you'll fill out this report. What then happens is each semester, the CTLE will download the Canvas data files. And I'll just show you what they're kind of messy, but I'll show you the process. And so what happens is we get the data files downloaded, and they will come in and they will have all the student information, and they have like 85 columns of information, and then most of which you don't need. But what I would do then is I will take that data and I will organize it and give it to you so that you can do things with it. So I'm going to actually pull up performing arts. Where's my performing arts? Here it is, because I actually helped performing arts do some data analysis in here. So the data that you will get, and let's let this load, because this is not the main tab. Here we go. So what you'll get is, you know, once the personal information is stripped out, it'll tell you what the title of, sometimes it's really funny looking at the titles of people's assignments in here. There's going to be a lot of information. When I give it to you, I will tell you what you need to pay attention to and what you can ignore. I typically give you all of the data, but I'll highlight the things that are relevant so that you know. But what I did for this group is I helped them organize their data. So the entire performing arts department is using the same rubric to analyze a particular piece of information, but you'll see they have lots and lots of different programs within here. And so I just helped them do some simple analysis looking at across the different programs, how were students doing? And then I convert it to percentages. So you could see that, for example, the theory and composition students seem to be doing a lot better than, you know, the theater and film students. And so then this allows that department to go and have some conversations around, is it really that the theater and film students are doing any better? Or is it that they're not scoring consistently across the rubric, or, are there interventions that need to be done, and all of that? So yeah, so if you're using institutional learning outcome data, we can do all this. If you were to need, like, so Canvas doesn't tell us instructor, it tells us section number, and it'll tell you like scoring, but there's a lot of information it doesn't tell us. So if for some reason you would need much more detailed information, that's when we would have to connect with institutional effectiveness, because they're the ones who would take our generic data and link it to, like student demographic information and so on. And that's why we want to try to use the ILO data dashboard for some of that stuff. But this would give you sort of the basic information. So that was probably a really long explanation, Gina, but did that get you what you needed?
It gave me a lot to think about. I'm not sure what I need, so
Okay.
it gave me things to think about.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really cool things you can do with this data. We can also put special outcomes in your class, like outcomes in. So psychology uses the institutional learning outcomes, but we also have a set of course learning outcomes. So we can download and look at that data. The honors program hasn't really used it, but there's honors program outcomes. Our child and families, I think it's child and family studies, one of those, they have some specialized outcomes in there. So there's some things, kind of cool things you can do. Now within your own class, so this is what you would need if you were looking comprehensively across a whole bunch of folks, a whole bunch of classes. But all of you as individual instructors have a learning outcome mastery gradebook where you can look at this data within your own individual class. I won't necessarily go into that unless anyone wants to really hear about the learning mastery outcome gradebook, but there's some cool things you can do individually that would kind of help support students. And you can not only see the outcomes once you've set them up in your class, but you can turn it on so the students can see the outcomes as well. So they can see, have they met whatever your level of proficiency is in certain areas. So Canvas has some cool features kind of beyond some of our ILOs as well. Maybe what I'll do here, just in case you haven't seen it, let's go to the live version of the dashboard. So this was initially built by Rachel Dillahay. And then Jackie's been doing a lot of work in the space of, because there's a lot of like the data that comes out of a Canvas, Jackie can speak to, very, very messy. And then it's quite a laborious process to link it all to the student information that we want to link it to, which is why, there's a little, now the delay right now in the spring data is me, because I haven't given the spring data there yet, because there were some issues that had come up, but generally it takes some time for this data to get in. But at any point during the semester, if you're like, I just want to make sure my data is in the data set, because sometimes faculty don't do the right thing, they don't score things quite right, we can always pull a report and check on the data. We just don't have the fancy stuff right away. All right, so this is what the dashboard looks like. I'm actually going to go to the data summary page first. So this shows, so all of this, if you look at any of our dashboards, you can identify any of our ILOs. So you can scroll by different ILO. You can, because there are more rubrics than there are ILOs, you can actually pick a particular rubric. You can pick a particular item within a particular rubric if you really cared at that level. You can look by semester, you can look by department, you can look by class prefix. So if you are the only instructor teaching a particular class and you score something in our ILO database, you can actually find your data here. Most people wouldn't know what that is. You can see overall where things are. Let me talk about the scoring really briefly. 0 means the student didn't turn it in. And this is actually really informative to us, because if we have a lot of students who aren't turning things in, then that begs the question of why aren't they turning it in? Is it an assignment issue? Is it, what's going on there? So we don't do that, like we don't kind of include that in some of the graphs, but it's an important data point. 1 means that they turned something in, but it didn't come anywhere close to meeting criteria. So they tried, but they are a ways away from proficient. 2 means that they're emerging. You're starting to see the outcomes that you want, but they're not there yet. 3 is proficient, and 4 is advanced. Now, the one thing to know about ILO data, which is a little bit tricky, is because it's institutional learning outcome data, when you are scoring it, you're scoring it not from the lens of, are they good enough on this thing in my class, but are they good enough to leave GCC with this? So I would expect in my Psych 101 class, I'll be impressed if students get a 2, because in Psych 101, they're mostly first semester, first year students. And I'm looking at critical thinking. If they're at a 3 or a 4, why are they even here at GCC? Like, they should just be gone. So it's a little bit like, so faculty do have to think, you know, they have to pick the right assignment to make sure that they think the assignment they're giving can capture. It's not like if it's too formative of an assignment, I wouldn't pick it. It needs to be something substantive enough that you can really get a sense of, you know, how good are students at this skill or at, you know, in this area. And then you have to think, okay, not how good are they for my class, because maybe they're meeting my goal for my class, but how, you know, am I ready to send them out proudly and say that is a GCC student and they know this information? So in some ways, like 4s, like, you know, one of the issues we have, like, we probably shouldn't have as many people scoring 4s, but that's something that we're trying to do some education around. So then you can look at the disaggregation by, you know, race and ethnicity, by gender. You can see, for example, that women score. I don't know if some of these things are statistically significant. We still have to analyze it, but, you know, women seem to be scoring a little higher than men. Not a lot of age differences here. We do see that pretty good. The students who who are first semester students are not scoring as well as ones later on the process. The more credit hours seems to indicate higher performance. You can ignore the class prefix at this point, it's too big. And then you can look at, we see actually a little bit of a difference between our 100 and 200 level classes, as we would hope, right? On the score details tab, that's where we were just looking at that data in the slide deck in the last section, where you can see now the scores are broken down by, you know, ethnic groups. Again, you can see here, like, so we see that, you know, more women are scoring 4s than men. Men are getting more, you know, the numbers of 3s are pretty similar, but men have more 2s, women have more 4s. You can look at age differences here and see, maybe not surprising, you've got a little bit, you know, a little bit that you've got more folks scoring higher, you know, the older ages. One thing you have to be careful of is what you don't get on the screen is the numbers of people represented in this data. You actually have to look at like the other screen to get that number. There was no way to build that. And so it could be the case if we're looking at ethnicity, you know, there may only be a small number of people in this American Indian group, whereas we might have, you know, several thousand people in the white group. So there's a little bit of measurement error in some of this. But again, you can kind of take a look at some of the differences here. Like, here's something that's really interesting. Students who haven't earned any credit hours yet, they're not turning in a lot of assignments. That's kind of problematic. That tells us something that maybe that's actionable. So this is this database that you can use. And again, you can drill down by all these different criteria to see what the data look like and if it might inform some of your practice. Other things you might want to know about institutional learning outcomes. One thing that will be coming, if you teach, for those of you who are teaching in Gen Ed areas, Gen Ed is changing. Arizona Board of Regents changed their rules. The 3 universities have shifted a little bit. So right now our curriculum department is kind of realigning our Gen Ed structure to meet ASU's kind of new Gen Ed structure. So you might see some changes coming with that as we kind of move forward with that. I only sort of mentioned it's on our radar a little bit because HLC said, you know, you're doing some really great institutional learning outcome assessment work, how are you capturing gen ed? This is one thing I haven't told Jackie yet, but one of the things I'd like to do, Jackie, yay, maybe if you can, is I would love to see in this ILO database a drop down for gen ed tag, so that we can look at courses by, is it an SB, is it a Q? So we're capturing kind of in this database our gen ed classes. Because I think sometimes when we talk about learning improvements, doing it in the space of a particular gen ed class might be really helpful. Might be like, okay, all of you, Q people or SB people, what can you do to make an improvement?
I was wondering, quick question on the assessments. Will the students, would they have the option to take an assessment on Canvas, or is that it's different than the evaluations that the instructors give out? Or
correct. So let me come in here and yeah, so the way that this works is once you identify an assignment you already have in your class that you think really well speaks to a particular institutional learning outcome and a particular item within an institutional learning outcome, what you can do is you just add that rubric item to your scoring. So let me come, I'm going to actually open up my class from last semester, and then let me come in and share this. So what I have done here is this is my fall, wait, we're in fall right now, my spring class. So there's a space down here called outcomes. And in the outcomes tab, this is where you can go in and you can add institutional learning outcomes to your class. You see, I have a few of them in here. I have a course learning outcome too. That's not one of our ILOs, but I have this handful of ILO items. Once you add it to your course and you roll your course over, it's there automatically. So there's a few steps to get it in there, but once it's in there, it's good. So then what you do is you identify, okay, like, what is it that I think would capture this particular item? We actually use this for our course assessment. We designed a Psychology 101 assignment that we specifically put together to measure critical thinking. And so, but you could attach, I have other things attached to other assignments that I think work well too. But so here's the course assessment. And then if you look at the rubric and things have changed, like it shouldn't have like quite all this information in there. I think we've updated that from last time, but I have my regular scoring rubric and I grade students on how well they do. And then the assessment is not part of their grade. That information just comes to us because, again, a Psych 101 student should be a 2. They shouldn't get docked for not being advanced because they shouldn't be advanced yet. So then they will see that there is this item here. And what happens then is that when I come into my speed grader and I score this, then I just indicate, how many points do they get? And then as soon as I click this, the information just comes directly to us in assessment and we get it in the database. So all that you're doing is really adding, you could either have a separate rubric if you really wanted it, or you can add it to an existing rubric and you just select that item. So let me pull this out for one moment because I'm going to go to my speed grader, but I want to make sure that there aren't any identifiable information from students in here. I'll go to the test student. Let's see here. So it makes it really easy because, you have to obviously have in mind what it is, how you want to actually like conceptually do the scoring. Okay. So here's my test student. And obviously there's no assignment because the test student didn't do it. But I would just come into the rubric and, I'd score whatever I'm going to score. And then the way the psych does it is we say, okay, how did they do from the perspective of the class? It might be like, oh, you are good for the class, but you're not quite there institutionally. But this first line, you wouldn't necessarily have that. Like that's special for the psych department. You would just have this. You would click this button, you would hit save, and you're done. And then again, that's just how the data gets to us and gets into our database.
Very cool. This is great. And so is this kind of in the same area as the grading would be, basically? It's like a little section onto near where the grading would be.
Yes. Oh, so yeah, like I mean, do you use rubrics in Canvas at all?
I teach ceramics, but I have taught an online, I did 2D design online. So
Okay. Yeah, and you could have a rubric, like if you want to grade in a way, like you could create a rubric that was simply just that ILO item all by itself. And in fact, if you like come into the Gaucho site where it has all those videos on what to do, it'll say, here's how this video is about how do you create a rubric just with the ILO that's it. Here's how you add it if you want to have a regular grading rubric and so on. So yeah, you can add a grading rubric to any assignment in Canvas. You can do it to a discussion, you can do it to a quiz, you can do it to a traditional assignment. And yeah, once you put it in there, you click the button and like your job is really done, other than potentially if you want to reflect on the information. Let me see. And then, but yeah, and then it kind of, again, comes to us. And then our job is kind of to look at it institutionally and think about how do we do things from an institutional lens with this information. Yeah. And then, the other question I often get is I have faculty who say, well, I don't want, like, students are going to be confused by this. Like, they're not going to know what this is. So when we do this, we got to wrap this up. But thank you for the great questions. When we do this, this is a great moment to do that equity and assessment piece where we involve students and we say, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. I have standard language I give them that I say, it's okay if you're a 2, like a 2 is good. And so I do, I don't know how much students read that information, but I do a lot of information in that space to try to help students understand why this matters and why we're looking at it and why it's okay that they don't need to be a 4 right now, because this is a iterative process in their learning.
Okay, so the student will see the assessment as well a little bit, or they'll get that as well.
Yeah, so that in ILOs, because you have to have the assignment published in order for the data to come to us, so it can't be hidden. But I've never had a student question it or be like, I share it with them, but yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.
That was good. I'm going to stop the recording here for this session.